How do you see the world now? Would you say the world has changed?
You see, the world is moving in an opposite direction. According to me, the way I see the world.
And you're telling me that, and I come to you to assess finance to be able to purchase the vehicle. But what you're saying is that, no, okay, what kind of vehicle do you want? Leave that to me. I will go and look for the vehicle, look for the price, and then come back and now sell the car to you. That's what the Sharia business story.
Yes, we are advocating real economic activities.
Right, but isn't that
economic activities?
Isn't that a middleman play rather than financing?
No, it is financing. This one is financing.
Okay.
Real economic activities. Real, if it is agriculture, we go and do the agriculture.
Okay.
If it is buying properties, we go and purchase a house and sell the house. Some of them, they are reckless. Go and borrow from money lenders per day, not per month.
But if they don't have the money,
borrow, you know what they tell them?
No.
They tell them that I'm lending you at 3%,
right?
1%. Just at 1%. Then someone thinks that, hey, just 1%, but that 1%, just ask, is it per day, per hour, per week, per year? What is it?
Take this moment to educate us a bit about what is Sharia law. Let me welcome you to the Religion and Enterprise television program. And as you know, we are talking about how religious institutions, faith-based institutions specifically, can help us address some of the challenges our continent is facing. As you know, Africa, we believe, is the future of the world. Why? As we speak, almost all the major world economies are looking at Africa. And as the statistics show, by 2050, Africa indeed is going to be the major supplier of human capital, in other words, labor, for the global economy. Question is, what can we do as Africans? A continent where 99% of the people are religious. Like somebody said, to be an African is to be religious. That means if you live on the continent of Africa, or if you're an African, either by African descent or whatever, chances are that you are either a Muslim or a Christian. The question is, how come the continent is bedeviled with a lot more challenges than we anticipated? That is the essence of this discussion. That is the essence of this program. And today we are privileged to have in our midst and our guest, Dr. Lujja Sulaiman, or Dr. Sulaiman Lujja, the manager of Islamic investment at the Microfinance Support Center here in Uganda, the eastern part of Africa. And I'm going to be engaging Dr. Lujja on the Islamic banking, on the Islamic faith, and how Islam can help us address a number of the challenges that are bedeviling us as a continent. Dr. Sulaiman Lujja, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Doctor.
And it's, this is the second time we are meeting on the platform like this. Remember the last time we met on the Religion and Enterprise Africa Summit at the Sheraton Hotel here in Kampala. And your presentation was so illuminating that it received almost one of the highest views on our channel. And everybody kept saying, this man is a real scholar, and I'm happy to have you on our set this morning. So let's begin by knowing who Dr. Sulaiman Lujja is. I know a bit about you, but please take your time and tell us your journey so far as to where you are now. Who is Dr. Sulaiman?
Thank you, Dr. Emmanuel. I am Sulaiman Lujja, Ugandan, married. I'm married, happily married with 4 children and 1 wife. About my studies, I am an accountant. Started bachelor's degree in accounting in Uganda here. Then a bachelor's degree, second bachelor's degree in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, Islamic University in Medina. Then a master's of business administration in Malaysia, from Malaysia. Then a PhD in Islamic Banking and Finance from Malaysia again. And I'm a certified Sharia advisor and auditor from from the Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Financial Institutions in the Kingdom of Bahrain. I work at Microfinance Support Center Limited, which is a government agency mandated to alleviate poverty in Uganda and Africa. We are giving models for Islamic banking. We pioneered it in Uganda, and we do extend affordable credit to the active poor, and also try to develop the skills of people. Sometimes someone would not be eligible for financing, but at least you can give him the skills that can enable him or prepare him to be a potential borrower in some time to come.
Wonderful. We'll come and talk more about the skills development and all, but let me start from here, Dr. Sulaiman or Dr. Lujja. You know, in Africa, when you hear the word Sharia law, it is synonymous to, you know, I don't know, but pardon my language, because I'm just describing what most Africans think of Sharia law to mean like, you know, where people are beaten or, you know, so to speak, people who do not compromise are severely punished. Take this moment to educate us a bit about what is Sharia law before we go into the nitty-gritty of our discussion today.
Sharia emanates from Islam. You have to know Islam before you can come to Sharia. Right. Islam is a complete way of life. Right. It's talking about all affairs of a human being. That is Islam. Okay. Part of Islam, just 1/3 of Islam, talks about Sharia. Sharia means Islamic laws and the Islamic way of life. Not just laws, but even a way of life, how we behave. Because Sharia can mean more than just laws. The rituals, Sharia could mean financial transactions. Like today we are going to talk about Islamic banking. That is part of Sharia. Okay. Sharia could also be the Islamic way of life. Like the way I've put on, that is also part of Sharia. Or Sharia could be the Islamic ethics, how Muslims behave. Today the world has discovered, after a long period of time, that every man should circumcise. That is Sharia. We talked about it how many years? More than 1,500 years ago. People thought that circumcision is for only Muslims. But today the world, you can see on the streets of Kampala here, government has put in money. They are calling people to come and circumcise free of charge. You can see now big hotels like these ones, 5 stars, 7 stars, 3 stars. They are providing water in their bathrooms, restrooms. What does it mean? It means that now people have discovered that in water we can find life. There is cleanliness in water. Many aspects are coming. Even in banking, we are going to talk about it. And you see the whole world now embracing Islamic way of doing banking, Islamic way of doing business. So that is Sharia. But people have to understand that Sharia really is the solution, can be the solution. Leave alone the faith. You can be a Muslim, or you can decide to be a Christian and draw just some lessons from Sharia. Like, for example, in banking, you can benefit from Sharia. There is no harm. You remain a Christian, but you come and benefit from the Sharia principles of doing banking.
I see. So Sharia law is not connoted by negativity as many people think. You know, it's in some part of the of other countries. They say that people are using, like Afghanistan, and people are using Sharia law and they are killing people. That's not really what the Sharia law is.
In my lifetime, I've not had any scholar who has been a fundamentalist or a terrorist in the world. All the people go and, from the internet, go and read about them, their background. They are engineers, they are bankers like you, they are economists. But who misunderstand and misinterpret Sharia, then become terrorists, become fundamentalists. And some others are just used just to smear a bad image on Islam.
I see.
You cannot find someone who has gone through proper education of Islam or Sharia, and he kills people. It is our faith, religion, which says, Quran says, God prescribed, God wrote in the Quran that when you give life to just one person, as if you have given life to the entire universe. And if you take away life of just one person, as if you have killed the entire world.
Interesting.
So you cannot find someone who understands Sharia, who understands Islam, going to kill and become a fundamentalist or a terrorist.
Interesting. This is interesting. Very educating. Yeah, very, very educating. So let's come back to some of the issues that, as you know, we want to talk about. As a chartered accountant, as a scholar, Islamic scholar, as a banker, and all of that, how do you see the world now? Would you say the world has changed? And if it has changed, how do you describe the changes that from where you sit? How do you describe the changes that you see?
You see, the world is moving in an opposite direction. According to me, the way I see the world, we can talk of development, but really we are turning back. If you can see banking, the way we are moving, the technologies we have, it is good to have technology. But when that technology and development is not guided by divine arrangement, that is the chaos we are having in the world.
And that is what you mean by development is going backwards or opposite direction?
Sure. That is what I mean. So if you have development which is blended with Sharia, or which is blended with divine arrangement, Sharia for Muslims, and for your case, you can see secularization. Development was detached from faith, Christianity. You can see that a banker is moving a different direction and a religious leader is moving the opposite direction. So if we can manage to blend our development, to have value-loaded development, where the development, the banking, the technology, the science is guided by even the religious leaders, that is where we can have a true kind of development.
So if I understand you well, your observation of the changes that are taking place in the world today, whether by the multipolar world, technology, the wars that we're experiencing, from as far as you are concerned, this is an indication of development in the opposite direction, so to speak. Yeah, sure. And then, as you mentioned, when it comes to even Christianity, there's some sort of dichotomy between development and religion, because the two are going directly opposite direction. Interesting. I'm going to come back, but in case you have just joined us, we are talking about religion and enterprise, Africa, and the fact that in Africa, as we have already indicated, 99% of Africans are religious. And as Dr. Lujja has already alluded to, many people who are either Muslims or Christians or have some kind of faith are beginning to realize that there's now time for us to bring to the fore the principles and the ethical issues of religion into national and continental development. And that is what we are talking about today. And we are privileged to be having our brother, Dr. Lujja, who is an Islamic scholar, a lecturer at the Islamic University, a banker, and also a Sharia, like call it a Sharia advisor as well. Listen, Dr. Lujja, this is getting interesting, and I'm not surprised because the last time you spoke at the summit, I mean, everybody said, "Man, goodness, this man is an imam." Are you an imam?
Although I don't have a particular mosque.
Okay.
But
educate us. Educate us a bit. Who is an imam?
An imam is someone who is educated, who has a background in Sharia studies, Islamic studies. Right. He has studied it, not just learning it from the mosque. You know, most of the problems we have in Africa, especially in Uganda here, most African countries, someone has not gone to school to study that particular field. He just comes and becomes religious Sundays to frequent the mosque or the church on Sundays. Just like 1 year or 3 months, he becomes a pastor. He opens up a church. That is the problems we have in Africa.
Right.
But really, if you go back to the universities, big universities. They have these professionals of theologies where someone can go and study. So I undertook such studies. They are the studies I took in Saudi Arabia. I studied a bachelor's degree in Sharia.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
So which means if you had a mosque, you could be a chief imam one day.
One day,
or a mufti, as you say.
After maybe retirement from the world of banking and the world of business, I can go back to that. But I think I can benefit more when I'm this side, because you can find imams there, many. You can find anyone who has studied theology can become an imam. But really, to combine the two, that is the theology studies and also the banking or the business sector, to benefit, for example, the Islamic banking sector, the economy, I think that is where I can benefit more.
Wonderful. So let's come back to the development and the global challenges that we have been talking about. Now, you are saying that development and the global economy is going in the opposite direction. Now, so the question I want to ask is, from that standpoint, do you see any opportunities or what could be the challenges for business development, particularly for Africa? From all the challenges, the changes that are taking place in the global economy now, do you see any opportunities or challenges, for that matter, for developing businesses in Africa?
You know, Europe has had it all. There is nothing which is not done in Europe. If you are an investor, really you can find it hard to find an enterprise there, to open up a new enterprise or a new idea which has not been done. But when you come to Africa, everything will be new.
It's virgin.
It's virgin.
Right.
It is virgin. That's why most investors, they are looking at Africa. They are looking at Africa and Uganda in particular, East Africa here, to be their destination of investment when they are thinking of investment. For example, Islamic finance now, you have seen Middle East now, they are looking at partnering with, for example, the Chamber of Commerce, Uganda Chamber of Commerce and Industry here in Uganda, and in other parts of the Africa, they are partnering with them such that they can bring in their investors to start investing in Uganda and in Africa in general.
Right. So in other words, you are saying that Africa now promises to be the future of the world, as we are saying, because all the opportunities are here now.
Sure.
And so if you are an investor out there, or you know somebody who has the capital and wants to bring it to, wants to invest, Africa is the final destination now.
Sure.
Interesting.
It is in Africa where you can find flowing water. Right. You can see it is raining. Normally, in the month of June, Uganda, we don't have rains, but you have seen rain since December, since January, it is raining until now. You cannot find such in Israel. You cannot find such in Dubai, but it's found in Africa here. So you bring an Emirati here in Uganda or an Egyptian here in Uganda with these waters which are just flooding, which are taking away people's property. Really, there is too much to do in Africa.
Absolutely. Do you see any challenges apart from all the opportunities? Are there some challenges?
Maybe some of the challenges is copying too much, adopting too much the Western models. We can develop our own models in Africa here, rather than just depending on what is coming from abroad, what is coming from Europe. You have seen homosexuality, the issue of homosexuality. Where is the problem? That is not our problem as Africans. It is the problem of the West, where a man will go with a man. But in Africa here, it is known. We are just importing it. We just want to be similar to the Europe because we want handouts from Europe. When we have many resources which are idle, standing idle. So we have not put such resources to use. We are just depending on Europe. Someone can live here, he has studied a degree, then he goes to Europe to work as a chef, to work as a car wash, to work in a restaurant, when he can be an accountant here, when he can really develop Africa.
Interesting. All right, so let's talk about, again, business development. At this time around, we want to talk about the future of Africa. I mean, you've already said that Africa is a virgin land. And, you know, in other words, everybody who wants to invest, Africa is the place to be. even when it comes to getting your return on the investment. I mean, today in Europe or America, if you put your money into any investment, maximum, sometimes it's even 0% or maybe 1%. But you come to Africa, you cannot even think about how much you're going to get out of that. So, Dr. Lujja, I'm sure you've heard of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. You've also heard about the Agenda 2063. Now, from the standpoint of, both investment and business development within the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and also the Agenda 2063, we know in Africa, most of the SMEs are in the informal sector, largely controlled or managed by women and young people. And you are the manager of the Microfinance Support Center. You are the manager of the Microfinance Support Center with specific responsibility for investment, Islamic investment or investment banking or whatever. The question is, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of these SMEs, the challenges they have and all of that. How can we support SMEs in Africa, particularly those within the informal sector, to be able to become active players in the Africa Continental Free Trade Area?
First of all, having, like we said, at Microfinance Support Center, what we have done is to give them business development services. Right. Sometimes, most of them, they have small capital. They are just starting. If you give him a loan of, for example, 100 million in Uganda here, Uganda shillings, right, you will be killing him. He doesn't know how to manage it. Right. He doesn't have even the treasurer. So what we can do is maybe to support them by giving them the skills they need first before they can access financing. Let them develop the skills of bookkeeping, knowing where to put the income and where to put the expenditures. Sometimes that one can be better than someone giving you a financing of 100 million. Then it kills you because you will remain with the obligation to pay that money. The money will die and you remain with the obligation to pay the money. And another thing, calling upon SMEs, because now most of the funders who have come, the investors who have come from the Middle East, they are interested in compliance with Sharia principles. Please have these principles embedded in your business. It will be easier.
So what are these Sharia business principles you are talking about here?
We are talking of, for example, the principle of like money is not a commodity. That is one of the principles. What is that? Money is not a commodity. Money is just a medium of exchange. We cannot transact money. In banking, in commercial banks, we are transacting money. We are selling money. When you go and borrow, even it will be easier for you to divert the money you have borrowed. You can divert it to another use. But if we have that principle of not taking money, the paper money, you are just interested in having the bank finance or buy for you the property you need or the asset. Maybe if you need, like in trade finance, you can engage the bank to purchase the items from wherever they are coming from. Then they sell you the assets or they sell you the items you want when they reach Uganda, when they reach Africa here. So the idea of money is not a commodity, it's just that we want to develop, we want to put all the factors of production to use. Land, labor, capital, we buy commodities. We engage in real economic activities, not just speculation.
So are you saying that by the Sharia principles, business principle, from the Islamic banking standpoint, isn't that a middleman kind of role play?
A middleman?
Yeah.
No.
Because if I come to you, I want to purchase, let's say, a vehicle, and you're telling me that, and I come to you to assess finance to be able to purchase the vehicle. But what you're saying is that, no, okay, what kind of vehicle do you want? Leave that to me. I'll go and look for the vehicle, look for the price, and then come back and now sell the car to you. That's what the Sharia business law.
Yes, we are advocating real economic activities.
Right, but isn't that
economic activities?
Isn't that a middleman play rather than financing?
No, it is financing. This one is financing.
Okay.
Real economic activities. Real, if it is agriculture, we go and do the agriculture.
Okay.
If it is buying properties, we go and purchase a house and sell the house.
So you go look for the house for me?
Yes. No, it is you.
Oh, I go and look for the house.
You look for the house.
Right.
You look for the vendor of the house.
Right.
even the price you can afford to pay. Then you come to me with an invoice. For me, I will just purchase it from the vendor, then I sell it to you. So that is what we mean by real economic activity.
Right, so the selling to me is not like, okay, so let's say Mr. X has a property. He says the property, he sells it to me at, let's say, $40,000 or 40 million Ugandan shillings. Yeah. So now I want financing, so I come to Islamic Development Banking, our bank, and I say, I've got a property, the property owner says it's 40,000 or 40 million Ugandan shillings. Then this is the invoice, or this is the agreement. So then what happens?
Then we purchase it.
So you pay the money to the
vendor.
Okay, and then
we own it first.
You own it first.
That one means sharing some risks. There are some risks which come with ownership of that property. When I pay it from the vendor, I absorb those risks. Right. Then until the period when I will transfer that asset to you, I sell it to you, I transfer it to you. So that period, however short it is, make me share in the risk of the enterprise.
So let's say I got it for $40,000. How much would you sell it to me?
That one will be determined by, for example, how have I profiled you? What are the risks in lending to you? For example, if you're a rich man who has collateral, who has good character, who has the capacity to pay, who has the capital, you have the capital, you are not just looking at this asset we are buying, then it means the markup rate will be lower than someone who is just a startup.
Okay. We'll come back to delve into Islamic banking deeper, as you know, because some of the debate has been, what's the difference between Islamic banking and the traditional commercial banking institutions, for example? But that's not the subject for now. We'll come to it in the course of the discussion, because I think we need to delve deeper into that. Why am I saying that? Because I think that Islamic banking promises some hope for SMEs on the continent, particularly now that we are going to the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. But I want us to go deeper into that. We shall come to that. In case you have just joined us, I am with Dr. Lujja Sulaiman from the Microfinance Support Center here in Uganda. He's a manager there, and he's an Islamic scholar, he's a lecturer, and at the same time, he's a chartered accountant. So we are excited to be having him here. And as you know, this is the Religion and Enterprise television. We are exploring how faith-based principles can help reduce some of the challenges that Africa is bedeviled with now, knowing that 99% of Africans are all religious. And if we are doing so within the context of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and the Agenda 2063, as you all know, Agenda 2063 promises that we are going to have a kind of continent which is developed by the Africans themselves. And for us to do that, all of us need to play a role with your religious background, with your ethical principles, and with your faith. And that is what we are doing now. And we are excited to be having Dr. Sulaiman Lujja with us here. Dr. Sulaiman, let's go deeper into this. If I listen to you very carefully, and from the explanation that you have given so far, it seems to me that Islamic Development Banking has a lot to give to SMEs on our continent. I mean, for example, you have indicated that one of your major cardinal principles has been that when people engage you for financing, you don't just give them the money, but you try to build their capacity and all of that. And then you try to reduce their risks to ensure that people do not just, come for money. You look at a number of factors so that the person who is taking the money or who is applying for the loan, you share the risk with that particular individual, which is good. So the question I'm putting to you right now is, do you agree that for Africa to be what it's supposed to be, faith-based institutions have a critical role to play? And if they do, what kind of role do you expect them to play? As an Islamic scholar.
Yes, of course I will bend that question towards our practices in Islamic banking.
Right.
In fact, and this one gives the difference between Islamic and conventional.
Right.
In our Islamic, any financial institution which conducts Islamic banking business has to appoint a Sharia advisory board or Sharia advisory council or committee. And this one is the body of Muslim scholars, Sharia scholars, who are well knowledgeable in the field of Sharia and in the field of banking and the business sector or any other relevant field. So that one means already that you can see business here, SMEs, they are going to have religious scholars guiding their business activities. Where do you find these religious scholars? You find them in faith-based institutions. For example, here in Uganda, if you're a bank and you want to operate Islamic banking and you want to be trusted by the community, you can draw these scholars, for example, from Uganda Muslim Supreme Council. They can come and they guide you because we want your business to be ethical. Okay. You want your business to have values. And who has these values? Who knows the values? They are these religious people because they can guide us. As I told you, Sharia or Islam is not just about faith. It's not just about praying. It also means commerce. It also means working. So these scholars, they have studied. Where they went, they studied faith, they studied worshiping, going to Makkah, praying 5 times a day, fasting the month of Ramadan. They have studied, in addition, how to conduct business in an Islamic manner.
By the way, for our viewers, we are not comparing Christianity and Islamic. That's not what we are doing. We are only trying to unearth some of the principles of Islamic faith that can help us to grow and better our businesses within the continent. And we are doing that within the framework of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And we are passionate about this because majority of our businesses in Africa, especially the SMEs, find themselves in the informal sector, which are largely managed and practiced by women and young people. And one of the key things that we find out here is capacity development. And when we say capacity, we're not talking about any big thing. We're talking about acquiring the basic skills of management principles that can grow our businesses. And to do so, we are interested in knowing what role faith and religion can play in that. And Dr. Sulaiman, what I'm hearing you say is that Islam is not just about praying, it's not just about going to the mosque and all of that, but it's very, very businesslike. Is that what you're saying? Because in Christianity, for example, they say, if you're a pastor, you shouldn't work and just pray, concentrate on the Bible and all of that. But what you're saying is that even an imam can own a fleet of businesses and all of that. Is that what you're saying?
The Prophet himself, Muhammad, we are believing in Islam, was a trader. And by the way, he borrowed. The principles of Islamic banking, we borrow them. In fact, we learn them from the Prophet himself. One of the traditions was narrated by Aisha. Aisha was the wife of the Prophet, the most loved wife of the Prophet. She narrated. Can you allow me to recite in Arabic?
Please go ahead.
Scholar. She narrated that Tuwuffiya Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the Prophet, peace be upon him, died. Death reached him. وَدِرْعُهُ مَرْهُونًا عِنْدَ يَهُودِيٍّ, when he had pledged his shield as a corato to a Jew who was not a Muslim. بِثَلَاثِينَ مُدًّا مِنْ شَعِيرٍ, he had borrowed. You see, the idea of banking and borrowing, we draw it from the practice of the Prophet himself. He went and borrowed. But by that time, there were no banking institutions or financial institutions. So he had to borrow. They were using, they were going man to man. The lenders were people who had money that time, and they were pledging securities to them. So the Prophet pledged his shield. You know a shield. He pledged his shield to him, and he got around 30 muddan min sha'ir. That is around 15 kilograms of flour. 15 kilograms. He borrowed from a non-Muslim.
And gave a collateral.
He had, some of his companions were wealthy people. They were the affluent people. They had money, like Abu Bakr, like Uthman. He did not go to them. He went to a non-Muslim. Just to teach you, today's generation, a lesson that you can do business with a non-Muslim. Even a bank, an Islamic bank, can be owned by a non-Muslim. But also that is another cardinal principle in Islamic banking. To show you that in Islam, you see, everything we are doing has a basis in the Quran, has a basis in Sharia. To show you that you can borrow whenever you have a collateral, a security to pledge. But you cannot borrow Islam does not allow you to borrow when you don't have any security. For example, like someone coming and he wants to borrow to start up a business, or to borrow and go and eat. That one is not allowed in Islam, in Sharia.
Okay.
Why? Because there is another tradition also which was narrated by Abu Huraira. He said that one time a man died and he was brought before the Prophet to perform a prayer for the dead. The Prophet asked, "Hal kana lahu dayn? Akana lahu dayn?" Did he have any debt? Then they said, he has 1 dinar. 1 dinar is what, like 1 riyal, or 1 dirham if you have gone to UAE. 1 dirham. He borrowed 1 dirham. He did not pay that 1 dirham. Then the Prophet said, "Sallu li akhikum, go and perform the prayer for that brother of yours. I cannot perform a prayer to someone who has died indebted." So you can see those two traditions are not colliding. They are just teaching you how to do banking and how to do business. Don't go to borrow to start a business,
Right?
but borrow to develop the business you are already doing, the enterprise you are already doing. So you can see really that Islamic finance or Islamic banking or the religion has too much to contribute towards business enterprises and small and medium enterprises.
I mean, walk us through a little bit, as to how, for example, Islamic Development Bank or Islamic Sharia principles have helped or has helped grown business. And now this is very pertinent to us because, number one, I've indicated that largely between 70 to 80% of all SMEs in Africa are informal. The cost of borrowing in Africa is extremely expensive. And the bankers will tell you, that, the reason why borrowing is expensive in Africa is because of non-performing loans. People don't pay their debt and all of those things. Now, so if Islamic banking really teaches people not to practice these things, and we are saying that how do we help SMEs to become profitable, and not only profitable, but to be able to become active players within the African continental free trade area? What other principles, Sharia principles, or Islamic principles, can we use as a faith-based institution to help SMEs grow? You've talked about don't borrow to eat, don't borrow to, in other words, financial management. What other principles, Sharia principles, can help SMEs in Africa?
You see, what is killing most of the SMEs in Africa is the cost of financing,
Right.
the cost of borrowing.
Right.
Money is lent out at a very high cost. How can you borrow at 35%? Really? Some SMEs, they don't go to banks, they go to money lenders. They borrow per, the other 28% I told you is per annum, 365 days. Some of them, they are reckless. Go and borrow from money lenders per day, not per month.
But if they don't have the
they
money,
borrow, you know what they tell them?
No.
They tell them that I'm lending you at 3%, or
Right.
at 1%. Just at 1%. Right. Then someone thinks that, hey, just 1%, but that 1%, just ask, is it per day, per hour, per week, per year? What is it? They don't go an extra mile. For them, they're just interested in getting the money into the pocket. Africans, what is killing most of the enterprises in Africa? Someone just wants to get the money put in the pocket. Does not think of how I'm going to pay that money and what is the cost of the money. So Islamic banking comes on board to regulate, for example, issues of penalties. Conventional banks make a lot of money in penalties. In Islamic banking, a bank is not allowed to treat a penalty as income. A customer has failed to pay, a genuine customer. If you fail to pay, you don't pay on time or you delay on your payment. A bank is not allowed in Islamic banking to charge you a penalty if it has not suffered actual monetary damage.
Isn't that an encouragement to people not to pay?
No. Because we assume that unless if you have a genuine reason for you to charge the customer. But if you don't have a genuine reason, if you have not suffered any monetary damage, don't charge that customer. We assume a genuine loss. Okay. not the losses which are cooked in Africa here.
Okay.
Because
I like that.
People go.
Yeah, but we are
borrow
talking
money,
about Africa. So how do you mitigate that as Islamic banking?
work on the ethics. And important, and I've ever told you, Dr. Emmanuel, the problem we have in Africa, why we have not developed, it is about interpersonal relationships and the ethics. How do you take something which is not yours? Absolutely. Most of the SMEs not in Uganda only, but in Africa. Someone goes to borrow money with the intention of not paying. He goes to the bank. I'm working in the bank. I was in the bank, now I'm working in a financial institution, which is lending. He comes with the purpose of just getting the money, put in the pocket, just to go, I will not come back. They will not see me again. They don't care about CRB, Credit Reference Bureau, that you are going to tarnish your name if you don't pay on time, or if you issue a check and it bounces. They don't care about that. So these are the issues, some of the issues which are impacting on the future of Africa. You see, Europe has reached where they have reached because people are ethical. He knows what belongs to him. What does not belong to you, please don't encroach on another person's entitlement. Don't go to a bank to borrow when you cannot pay back.
So what do you think can be done in addressing some of these issues?
As I said, for example, in Islamic banking, the cost of financing should come low, should come down. The cost of money, the cost of financing. Really, we are borrowing at a very high rate, return rate to the banks.
But what rate is Islamic banking giving out at the moment?
Of course, as I said, it has to be lower because when you go to a bank, Islamic or conventional bank, they will profile you. Profiling means looking at, for example, your credit history. How have you behaving? How have you been behaving when you issue checks? Are you trustworthy? Is there money or they just bounce? That is what we mean. If they find that you are not good at paying back, even the financial institutions are unethical to the extent that we just go to the Corato. They give you the money with the intention of taking your Corato. But it shouldn't be the case. In fact, if you look at the 5 C's of determining whom to give the financing, the Corato is the last one, should be the 5th C. But we start with the character. Character is number 1. What is your character? How do you behave with your children? How do you behave with your family? It should start from there.
How do you know that? If I came to you, I want to borrow, how would you know how I relate with my family?
If you are Dr. Emmanuel and you are approaching your 60s and you don't have a family, you don't have a wife, you are not living with your children, you have been marrying and divorcing all the time, you have a question on character. So if I'm a financial institution, I should not go and lend money.
So in other words, stability is key.
That is it. If you have been unfaithful, your children do not go to school. You cannot afford to take your children, to buy food for your children. They are in the streets. How will you be able to pay my money back? It means you will not pay back the money. That is the component of the character we are talking about. Then other C's, Corato, capital, what, and the last one should be the Corato. The Corato should come last. But we have found that financial institutions have gone now to turn it the other way around. Bring the Corato first to give you the financing because of the Corato, such that when you fail, they are taking your Corato. So this is why we are saying that really ethics is key in financing. And ethics is key in determining the cost of money, the rate at which I lend you the money.
If you have just joined us once again, this is the Religion and Enterprise Television, and we are talking about the role of faith-based institutions in helping Africa to become what it's supposed to be, because we believe, as I've mentioned, Africa is indeed the future of the world. And within the context of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and the Agenda 2063, what role can faith-based institutions play, knowing that Africans are largely religious? And as we've mentioned, in the case of Muslims praying 5 times a day, on Fridays, everybody is in the mosque. In the case of Christianity, Sundays, all our streets are quiet. The question is, why then is Africa not developing? And that is the essence of the discussion that we are having here. And today we are privileged to have Dr. Sulaiman Lujja, who is a manager at the Microfinance Support Center here in Uganda, and also an Islamic scholar So we are not just talking about anybody from the street. We are talking about Islamic development banking, the role of religion in banking. So, Dr. Sulaiman, what is the focus of Islamic development bank? Sorry, of Islamic banking? And also, what is the cardinal differences between Islamic banking and our traditional commercial banks that we have? Take your time and educate us on this. The focus of Islamic banking.
You see, I told you the principle of money is not a commodity. That is number one. We are not selling money. We are dealing in real economic activities, real trade, real transactions. What do you want to buy? An asset. An asset has to exist. Don't just come for money. That is number one.
So before you go on further, and I want my viewers to understand this, because this is, we want to contextualize this discussion, and it's about faith-based religion and how it can help develop SMEs and businesses, of course, targeting the entrepreneur himself. So in other words, what you are saying is that if I came to Islamic banking and I said I wanted money, chances are that I will not even see the real cash in my hand as a borrower.
Should not see.
I shouldn't see. But
because the monetary
policy. And I'm asking this question because if I went to say any of the commercial banks, once it's approved, in less than maybe a day or two, the money is hit my account. So I can then write a check. What you are saying is that if I came to you, I will not see real cash in my account.
You have to have an economic activity. By the way, this is where the problem came from. The monetary system, even the central banks, how they regulate. Last time in the summit, I cited Henry Ford, what he said. You remember what he said? It is well enough that people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system. For if they did, there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning. That is what Henry Ford said. Because people are reckless, they don't care. Banks even, they are not about creating economic activities. They are about creating money, credit creation, not benefiting the economy in any way. That's why they end up giving out the money when they have not really done feasibility study of what the customer is going to do. So you find the customers cannot pay back. In Islamic banking, there has to be an asset being bought. It depends on the enterprise you are going to do. If it is asset, you are buying a car, I have to ensure that a motor vehicle exists somewhere in the warehouse. I buy it and I sell it to you. So there is no way someone can come, submit the application for motor vehicle or car financing, then end up shifting the money or diverting the money to another activity. Maybe marrying another wife. Cannot. It has to be a motor vehicle. It has to be, for example, land. If it is asset financing, I have to purchase the land and I sell it to you.
So that's the focus of Islam.
That is the first one.
Okay.
That is the first one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Then the next one should be the partnerships. In Islamic banking, people have seen countries where it has worked. Kenya, you have seen it. Nigeria, you have seen it. Ghana, do you have Islamic banking in Ghana?
No, not yet.
Not yet. But Nigeria, they can tell you the story. Chad, they can tell you the story. Botswana, they can tell you the story that Islamic banks really can come and partner with you as a customer to do the business together.
How do you do that?
I have to first study the business you are going to do. Really, if there is, if there are little risks in that business and I can mitigate the risks, there is no harm of partnering with you. We can partner in such a business.
By investing
in the first difference I told you, I buy the car, I sell you the car, then you pay me like in 3 years. But in this one, it could be a car, the same car, but we decide to partner. If it is like a truck, which we are going to use in developing infrastructure, we can buy the tractor, for example. I can tell you to contribute like 10% of the cost of the tractor. I contribute 90%. We become partners. I own 90%. I have 90% stake in the cost of the tractor. and in all the profits of the tractor is going to make money. So 90% of the profits will come back to me. Only 10% will go to you. That is the partnership.
So in other words, the bank as an institution can partner with the business.
That is when we are desirous to share the risks. In the first one, the bank was not sharing the risks with the customer. But in partnership, the bank shares the risks with the customer. Because if you contributed 10% as customer, and I contributed 90% as a bank, it means we are going to share in the success
of it.
Of the business.
At the same time, in the possible failure
of course.
Of the business.
The losses, I will take 90% losses, you take 10%.
Okay, so any other? You talk about, economic value of the whatever. You talk about partnership.
Money is not a commodity.
Yes.
Then another one has been partnerships. Then another difference, I told you that every financial institution which conducts Islamic banking business appoints a Sharia advisory board, a Sharia advisory council committee, which means compliance with Sharia principles. Islamic financial institutions comply with Sharia principles. Sharia principles are very easy. People should not think that we are talking about something which is going to Islamize Africa, bring Islam in Africa to be dominated by Muslims, to be dominated by Sharia principles. No. This is what Pope said. I also cited it in the summit. Pope Benedict XVI. In fact, in 2010, that is when he said, after the financial crisis, that the ethical principles on which Islamic finance is based, ethical principles on which Islamic finance is based, may bring banks closer to their clients and to the true spirit which should mark every financial services. He was talking of the Sharia principles. These are the ethical principles. The principles of fairness, the principles of equitable distribution of resources. These are the principles he was talking about. I only take what is appropriate to my contribution into the business. Like what we have just said. If you have contributed 10%, you take 10% losses and 10% profits of the undertaking.
So from Islamic banking's point of view or perspective, what is the main difference between Islamic banking and traditional commercial financial institutions?
It is
if there is any.
The idea or the principle of compliance with Sharia law. Conventional banking does not have a requirement of complying with any divine law. It is secularized, as I told you. It is detached from divine arrangement. Not Islam, divine Christianity. For example, it is separated from church, the church arrangement, the church regulation. Church is church, it is done on Sunday, and business is done from Monday up to Friday.
This is interesting. So in other words, what you are saying is that Africa seems to be, let me say Africa, not necessarily financial banking, because statistics have shown that the two major institutions, the two major religions in Africa are Islam and Christianity. And you're saying that with Islamic banking, it is largely underpinned by Sharia principles. And yet, when it comes to traditional banking, it is not underpinned by any divine arrangement. So we are running businesses that has no based on guidance, divine ethical principles. If there are any, they are secularized. They are not necessarily divine. But when it comes to Islamic banking, it is underpinned on divine principles, i.e. Sharia law. That is interesting, which means that for Africa to develop, being the future of the world, and start from the standpoint of continental free trade area and Africa, they have Agenda 2063, there has to be a divine agenda.
Go back to the roots
Educators.
of religion.
Educators.
We shall do much in Africa. We are dreaming too much. You look at the West, you want to be like them. We shall write feasibility studies. We shall do studies, benchmarking everywhere. But the key is in going back to the roots of divine arrangement. Because today, in fact, if you are secular, you know what I mean by secular. If you are secular, you are going to put the laws in favor of you in Africa here. This is what is done in most of the African countries. If you're in government, you will only legislate what favors you. Even if it is you become the president of Ghana, you will put the constitution, you will put all the laws which will be passed in the parliament of Ghana will be favoring Dr. Emmanuel. But if you are guided by divine arrangement, God, there shall be equitable distribution of resources, as we say. He will not favor you, he will favor mankind. You understand? And even when I talk of Sharia laws, people should not think that this is Islam. No. Sharia laws, we mean the 10 commandments in your Bible. The 10 commandments, you know them. Don't kill. By the way, those 10 commandments are common in all divine arrangements. They are the cardinal principles even in Sharia, in Islam. What we mean by Sharia principles, they are the 10 commandments you have. Don't steal. The second one is what?
Don't
kill.
covet and all of those things.
All those things, they are the 10.
Yeah.
Because for us, we believe, I don't know, me and you have to believe that the source of our religions, Islam and Christianity, is the same. It's just the understanding of Africans especially, the misinterpretation, the misunderstanding. And because we have our agendas as people, that's why we are fighting each other. But our religions, actually, the Jesus you believe in, we have him as Isa in Islam. We believe in him. By the way, you find a Muslim who does not believe in Isa or Jesus cannot be a Muslim. You have to believe in all the prophets who came before Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, but the way we interpret that divine arrangement brings us chaos in Africa.
This is interesting. Again, in case you have just joined us, this is the Africa we are talking about here within the context of the religion and enterprise development. And as I've mentioned over and over and over, Africa is largely religious because majority of the population are indeed religious. And today we are focusing on Islamic banking and how it helps SMEs in particular in Africa to develop and be empowered so that they can become active players in the Africa Continental Free Trade Area and also within the Africa Agenda 2063, the Africa we want. And we are privileged to be talking to Dr. Sulaiman Lujja, an Islamic scholar, a banker, a chartered accountant, and also a lecturer. We are continuing the discussion to find out what is the role of religion and faith-based institutions in our business development. And within the business development, as you mentioned earlier on, if for example, you went to Islamic Bank to borrow money, out of all the 5 or 7 C's you talked about, one of the things they are going to be asking is your character. And for example, if you are doing business and you are of age, they want to know whether you have a family. How are you connected with your family? How are you connected to the children of your own family and things of that nature? We're going to be talking about that. Dr. Lujja, I'm sure, being a lecturer, you are very much aware that by 2050, Africa is going to be the largest producer or supplier of labor, to the rest of the world, knowing that the demographically, the rest of the developed countries are dwindling. And with all the things that we've talked about, with the global changes, technology and all of that, how does Africa address the skills gap as far as our young population is concerned? And in doing so, what do you anticipate to be the critical role of religion in this skills gap development? Or in preparing the youth for the global market by 2050?
The role of religion would be inculcating ethics into the youth, into the population. If you are an employee, you are an accountant, you are a bookkeeper, but you are not trustworthy. If you are not trustworthy in terms of conduct, you are a thief. In other words, no one can trust you. And even the blessings, I don't know, some people they are saying that, no, religion, secularism, religion is the other side and business is the other side, but you cannot differentiate the two. Even the kind of blessings, you can do too much, you can have too much, but if you don't have blessing, really, everything, for us in Islam, we say that the world will be scattered for you. You will not be contented. Then you find someone who doesn't have too much, but is contented with the little he has. So this is what we are saying, that really, the kind of skills government should put into our generation, this generation, is the trustworthiness and accountability. You can have the PhDs, you can have masters, you can have the MBAs, but if there is no accountability, if there is no ethics, really, it will be nothing, and it will do Africa little in terms of development.
So in a sense, what you are saying is that it's not enough for us to have intellectual capacity, but we must also have ethical principles, integrity, and all of that. Well, in case you have just joined us again, this is the Religion and Enterprise Africa Focus Program. We are discussing the role of faith-based institutions in ensuring that Africa indeed becomes the future of the world, so that we can move to the level that the continent ought to go. And that is what we are discussing now. I'm getting to my final part with Dr. Lujja, who is a manager at the Microfinance Support Center here in Uganda, an Islamic scholar, and also a lecturer. And we are discussing the role of Islam or Islamic banking in supporting and growing SMEs on the continent to become what is supposed to be as far as the Africa Continental Free Trade Area is concerned. Dr. Lujja, let's come to the conclusion of our discussion this morning, which has been very illuminating and exciting. Now, in the course of our discussion, you mentioned the fact that Africa has lost the centrality of divinity in our advancement, in our democracy, in our business, and all of that. My question to you is, as Africa indeed prepares to be the centerpiece of the future of the world, what do you expect religion, faith-based institutions, what do you anticipate to be the critical role of faith-based institutions in making Africa what is supposed to be? And I want you to feel free to talk to us about this particular issue, because I think that listening to you and with all the wealth of experience and knowledge that you have, you've seen quite a bit in the world. You've been to Malaysia, you've been to the developed countries, you've been in Africa, you are in Uganda, you've done quite a lot. What do you anticipate, being an imam as well, and an Islamic scholar, what do you anticipate to be the critical role of religion in making Africa indeed the future of the world?
You see, as I said, in fact, divinity has to guide development. And politicians or people in the development sector should be closer to the religious leaders. You saw what Pope said when he recommended for financial institutions just to be ethical. He wanted them to be ethical in a way they are conducting their businesses. His dream was to see, for example, the banks coming close down and solve the real problems of people, not just making money out of the people. So there is a great contribution, these religious leaders. I'm not talking of only Islam or Muslims or the religious denominations. They should guide, because at least we think for them they come for the purpose of the people. Whereas the politicians we have, they are looking for the next election. That is their ambition. Their dream is to go back to parliament. Their dream is to be the president of the next 50 years, of the next 10 years. But we hope that the religious leaders are there really to see that we have equality and equity in the way we are conducting our business. So really, there is a great contribution for religion. And there is great support which we need. For example, if Islam has afforded to bring back the ethics into the business, it should be guided by even other religious leaders who are not Muslim, like in Christianity. There is no harm of a reverend coming or a pastor coming to support people be guided by ethics of Islamic banking. Because really, we are talking of don't steal don't do like this. The 10 commandments are the same we have in Islam. So these are the ethical principles we are inculcating in business. So it should be supported by not only Muslims, but even the religious leaders from other religious denominations.
Would you recommend that people of faith should go into politics? And if you do, why?
There is no need, I think. They just need to work together, sit together. Because how come you have a mayor and on the Sunday he's the one to preach in the church, or he's the one to preach in the mosque? He can be conflicted somehow.
I'm not talking about pastors, or I'm talking about people of faith. Like I'm a Muslim, you're a Muslim, I'm a Christian. Would you encourage me and you to go into politics? Not that I'm the pastor, not that you are the imam, not that you are the mufti, but people of faith. Since we are talking about centrality of divinity in almost every aspect of human life, would you subscribe to the notion or the school of thought that Christians and Muslims should be actively involved in national governance and politics?
Because these politicians, they are Christians, they are Muslims. It can be easier for them to become religious than bringing the ones who have not been there to go and be the politicians. It is harder for someone who has been frequenting the mosque or the church all the time in the church to become the governor or to become the member of parliament. But the member of parliament, we should try to make him, because he's a Christian, he's already a Muslim, try to inculcate ethics in him. It is easier for him to become religious because he's already a Muslim. Right. He's already a Christian. Than making the other one who doesn't even know how to work, because today the religion we are preaching in Africa has tainted the religion itself. Someone is ever in the mosque, he does not work. You are having session after session after. When do they work? When do they work? Really, you find that it is quite hard for him to come out of the church and go and become the member of parliament there, or and become the mayor. But let's make ourselves ethical, because these people are already religious, they are already Muslims, they are already Christians, they can be faithful to the people, they can be really religious, not just come on Sunday when you have embezzled government money. Throughout the week you have been embezzling money, then you come on Sunday or Friday, you give some part of it, tithe. That kind of tithe in Sharia or in Islam is not acceptable. You go and still come and give to God to purify the stolen money. That one is not acceptable in Islam.
Dr. Lujja, we cannot thank you enough, and I just want you to look at this camera, and I want you to give your final thought. Now you are talking to the 1.2 billion people on the continent. We are saying that Africa is indeed the future of the world. And as I mentioned, by 2050, the whole world is going to look up to us for labor, human capital, and all of that, because we have a youthful continent. Now, so look at this camera and all the things that we've discussed: business, ethics, divinity, and all of that. And give us your final thoughts to the 1.2 billion people on our continent.
My last remark. Indeed, it is true that Africa is the future of the world. But when you say that in the supply of labor, which labor? Are they the maids who are going to Dubai, who are going to the Middle East and suffer from there? They are killed from houses. This is not the kind of labor, the future of Africa we need. We want professionals like accountants who are ethical. We want professionals, politicians who can really go and give a good picture of Africa, and also have development. The development we are looking forward to have in Africa, let it be guided by divine arrangement. Really, we cannot separate it from the divine arrangement. If the West have succeeded in detaching religion from business, I don't think it can work in Africa. What we have borrowed in Europe, what we have borrowed in Middle East, that is to be all the time to be in the mosques, all the time to be in the churches, that is a good thing we have borrowed. But maybe the way it will work in our Africa is to have the blended development, the development which is touched which is touched to divine arrangement, which is guided by divine arrangement. And in this case in particular, Islam, we have Islam, for example, it has afforded to bring ethics, to blend ethics, blend banking, to package banking into ethics of divine arrangement. The divine arrangement we are talking about, they are not particularly for Muslims, particularly for Islam, but it is ensuring equity, they are ensuring equality, and they are ensuring fairness to all.
Well, how else could it be said? And as you know, this is a Religion and Enterprise TV. We are passionate about ensuring that Africa indeed becomes the future of the world, and it is indeed the future of the world. But to do so means that a lot of things have to change. And as Dr. Lujja has alluded to, we need to be divinity-centered and ethical principled people. That is the only way we are going to be able to attract the kind of investment that we are talking about here. For Africa Continental Free Trade Area to work, for the Agenda 2063 that we are talking about to become indeed the Africa that we want, all of us need to put our hands on the deck. And to do so, we can only do so with our head, our heart, and indeed our hands. There's no need for us to spend all the time only praying with our mouth without praying with our hands and our legs as well. And that is the message that Dr. Lujja has left us. So let's go out there, make ourselves contributing factors of the Agenda of 2063, the Africa we want. And we believe that if we do so, then indeed Africa will become the future of the world. It's been a pleasure having you, and we're looking forward to you joining us another time when we have come your way. Dr. Lujja, we cannot say thank you enough, but all we can say is that congratulations for that illumination that you have brought to us here. We're very grateful. Thank you so much.